Welcome to our third week of Slow and Sweet, our Yin series focusing on rest. And in this session today, we are going to be starting in either a supported child's pose or any shape of your choice that you would like to start in. As with every session in this series, you'll definitely need some blankets, some blocks, a bolster. And as you can see here, I've placed a blanket across my mat. This is optional. I just like to have the extra softness. So if you'd like to join me in a supported child's pose, you might have your bolster nice and long right in front of you. And if you don't have a bolster, you could take some blankets or beach towels and fold them up and just kind of stack them. Might take a couple, 2 or 3. And then you might allow your knees to come as wide as the mat or as wide as you feel comfortable with, and drawing in your props nice and close to you. I like to allow my big toes to just gently touch back behind me before I send my hips back. And allow the chest to come down to the bolster. And then you can allow your arms to just rest wherever it feels supportive. And as you take a moment to settle in, to sink in, I welcome you to give yourself some time to kind of fidget, move around, figure out where do I want to be and what does feel supportive. Because sometimes it might take a couple tries, and that's okay. And so when you do arrive, I welcome you to find your body. Oftentimes our mind is searching outward, noticing things in our environment, and instead, can you turn inward, find your body, and just take a moment to just feel whatever shape that you're in, as we'll be here for the next 7 rounds of breath or so. Using this shape at the beginning of our practice to just start to pause. Start to invite the body to slow down. Invite the mind and the body to catch up to one another. In previous sessions, we explored Ujjayi breath, which is the soft engagement of the throat muscles to extend your exhale. And if that's something that feels welcome to use in your practice today, you could start that at any time. Or you might simply just allow your natural breath to flow in and out at whatever pace feels right to you. This will be here for another 2 or 3 rounds of breath. And you, as always, can stay here longer. But if you are ready to slowly move your way out of this shape, You might start to find your way up and press your hands away and slowly come up to a seated shape. Just pausing at the top. I will never encourage you to rush in this class. You will always be encouraged to move at your own pace. So just a gentle reminder that if ever we are in a shape that we leave, or I give the option to leave sooner or stay longer, you can choose whatever feels right to you. So just a gentle reminder. Okay, for our next shape, we can move our bolster out of the way and go ahead and grab a blanket. And we're gonna fold it up into thirds. And so I'm starting with a nice square here, and then I'm just gonna fold it into thirds. And so this Yin Yoga class, we're focusing on the lower body. And so we're gonna start with the feet. And so you can take your blanket and just place it long ways, right in between your shins. And you want it far back enough so that when you sit back, your tailbone and your glutes are supported. And so here, we're giving our ankles a nice, gentle stretch. And if this feels like more intense than what your body might be looking for today, couple options. You can raise your seat. You could take another blanket and stack it right on top of this one. Another option is to just gently bring your hands forward so that your ankles can continue to receive the stretch, but you're taking some of the weight off, so it's not so intense and big. And so when you arrive in this shape and making any changes that you see fit for your body, you might start to bring your awareness to the very base of your spine, your tailbone. And then traveling your awareness up your spine, just noticing what shape your spine is making. Is there a lot of effort to maybe draw yourself forward and up? Are the muscles around your spine very tense and hard? Or maybe there's the opposite action of a slumping. And so neither of these things is right or wrong. But if you're curious, you might begin to just allow your spine, with your inhale, to just float up just a little bit, maybe just 1 inch. And then maybe your lower back softens. Maybe your lower back even grows a little bit slumpy, as the very middle and top of your spine continues to find spaciousness, just a soft spaciousness. We don't have to strive or force. And we'll be here for another 5 breaths or so. If it feels welcome, you could scan through your body and notice anywhere that is holding tension that does not serve you. So tension, clenching, tightening of muscles that might prefer to soften. Perhaps it's your jaw. Maybe it's your legs. or somewhere else. And then, if you're ready to move out of this shape, you could slowly start to bring your hands forward and come up into a tabletop. And this same blanket that we're using right here, we're gonna use again, but this time we're gonna tuck our toes. So here, the toes are tucked. And then you can place your blanket right over your calves, right over your Achilles tendon area. Okay, and then you could slowly sit back. Now this is a really big plantar stretch, so the very bottom of your foot and your toes. A lot of us do not stretch this area, so this can be a really intense shape. Please take your time. Here's an option. Option 1 is to place the blanket behind you and sink back. Option 2 is to bring your hands to the floor and continue to send your hips back over your heels so that you can continue to receive the benefits of this shape. However, you control how much of your weight goes back, so you can shift yourself a little bit more forward, you can shift yourself a bit more back. It really just depends on what your body needs today. And we're not going to be here very long because this is a very intense stretch. So let's just say about 5 breaths. However, you reserve the right to leave before those 5 breaths. You reserve the right to change your shape at any time. And you reserve the right to stay longer if your body's really liking this shape. About 2 more breaths. And if you're ready to leave, you could bring your hands forward, untuck your toes, be very gentle. Remove that blanket, just set it to the side. We're going to need it again here in a moment. And if you'd like, you could maybe take tabletop if that feels welcome. Maybe move through the ankles, stretch through the toes, curl them in. Option 2, extend through your legs if you'd like. Anything goes here. Okay. And so for our next shape, we'll be coming into a supported lunge. And so for this, you'll need some blocks. I like to start at the highest level. And then I like to place my bolster on top. Now this seems really tall. And once you get into the shape, if you notice, oh, I don't need so much height, you could always drop the blocks to the middle height or the lowest height, or get rid of the bolster or block altogether. So we'll be stepping, we'll need our trifold blanket. So have that nearby. And we'll be placing the trifold blanket the width of our mat. And you might need to do some adjusting once you get into this, but we'll be stepping our right foot forward. And your trifold blanket back here, the purpose of it is to have it supporting your left quad. So technically my left knee is touching the ground. However, a lot of weight is also on the blanket. So I'm really scooching that blanket back and allowing my quad to rest on top of it. And with my right foot forward, I'm here in a low lunge. And this bolster and these blocks are here to catch our arms and our upper bodies. Now you have a couple choices. You could allow your body to stay nice and open, maybe just lifting the gaze. Another option is to completely collapse into it. So maybe even resting your forehead on your hands, adjusting your body so that your whole head can just come down. So take some time and set up in a way that feels right to you. And we'll be here for about 8 to 10 breaths. And while we're here, I'd like to share a quote with you by Octavia Raheem. And she writes, "You may think you are not doing much at all. However, transformation requires rest." You may think you are not doing much at all when you rest. However, there is a different kind of work, a different kind of motion, transformation happening when we pause, that can only happen when we pause, when we rest. And I welcome you to notice what comes up for you from that quote and from what I just shared on rest. Maybe your body responds. Maybe your heart rate changes. Or maybe a thought floats across your mind. Maybe there's a belief around rest, around doing not much at all. And if so, I just welcome you to notice whatever that might be. Not needing to judge or change or correct, but just observing from the seat of the observer and just, oh, okay, that's interesting. I see that. I see my body responding in this way, or I see this story unfolding in my mind. Not needing to necessarily interact with it, just taking note. Now, as we start to find completion in this shape here, you might begin to move your hands down away from the bolster, start to shift your hips back, and if you're ready to, you could start to send your right leg back. And I like to take a little bit of a moment and just stretch through the right leg. And just allow the hip flexors to kind of rebound a little bit. And we'll be still needing our bolsters and our blocks for this next shape, but there's going to be, and our trifold blanket, but there's going to be a little bit of a difference. So we'll be coming into a supported pigeon, and I like to have my bolsters either at an angle, which you'll know when you get into it what you prefer, or no blocks at all and just have the bolster there. So you can kind of explore what feels right. And so with our trifold blanket, right where it was for our lunge, we'll go ahead and just take our right foot, step it forward if you're ready to come into pigeon. But you can take your time if you're still rebounding.
And then allowing our right foot to kind of head on over to the left side of our mat so that our right knee can start to fall over. And our left leg can come down long, and our trifold blanket can be underneath our right hip and also supporting our, kind of the back of our, or sorry, the front of our left leg. So you can adjust your blanket as needed. And this is just going to support your hip. And then you can explore, maybe draw your bolster next to you. And you can settle on down to your bolster. Maybe you start without blocks and just see, oh, is this enough for me here? Does this feel like enough support? And if it doesn't, you could grab your blocks and raise the height of your bolster with your blocks. And then settle in again. And check in and notice, how does this feel now? And so once you have the props how you like them, I invite you to settle in for an extended rest. We'll be here for about 2 minutes. However, you can always leave or stay longer than those 2 minutes. There's a lot of unlearning and relearning that we have an opportunity to explore here regarding rest. I noticed the other day as I was at home, having finished everything I needed to do for the day, and I still had a few hours to just kind of do nothing. And I observed myself walking around my house with my muscles tense, not allowing myself to rest, and almost like I was looking for something to do, not wanting something to do, but not also giving myself permission to rest, to do nothing. And so I asked myself this question, and it was just simply, what would you like to do right now, Hannah? What would you enjoy? What would feel restful right now? And I just allowed myself to answer honestly, without judgment, without needing to correct or change my answer. And I watched all of these things flow through my mind of things that I could be doing, things that maybe I supposedly should be doing. And instead, I just knew, nope, not those. What I really need is just to sit down and rest my body. And so I did. And all it took was an hour until I felt a bit more rested, a bit more recharged. And then I was able to move on with my day. Rest is not lazy. Rest is a necessity. And so, as we are here in this Yin Yoga class, seemingly doing nothing, I invite you to question any thoughts or beliefs around rest that might be coming up. Again, without judgment, but with more curiosity. And so if you're ready to move out of this supported pigeon pose, I invite you to slowly make your way up, taking as much time as you need. There is no rush. And once you do find your way up, you might just allow yourself to kind of sit on over to the right hip, moving your blanket out of the way and just setting it in front of you and allowing your left leg to come around. And here we can just move our trifold blanket to the side, and we're going to be using our bolster and our blocks for this next shape. And so facing your bolster and blocks, I invite you to come into a wide straddle. And how wide this straddle is totally up to you. Your legs might go off of the mat like mine are, or your legs might be as wide as your mat. And just be aware that the more narrow your legs are, you're going to feel the stretch more in your hamstrings and the backs of your legs. And the more wide your legs are, the more of your inner thigh that you're going to be stretching. Neither is right or wrong. It's just simply preference. So what does your body need right now? And then choose that. And so as you come into your wide straddle, you might begin to draw yourself forward toward your bolster. And now you have a couple options. You could allow your elbows to come to the bolster and just rest. Or if you feel like you want to just totally let go and collapse, which I totally welcome you to do if that feels good. You could do that, maybe turning your head to one side. And if your bolster and your blocks aren't tall enough, you could take your trifold blanket, place that right on top, and then return and notice, oh, it's a little bit taller here. And we'll be here for about 10 to 12 breaths. Just allowing the body to rebound after being in that very deep hip stretch from Pigeon and from Lunge. Just giving the body a second to stretch out. Last couple breaths here. And if you feel complete, and if you feel ready to start to slowly make your way out of this shape, option to do so. And you could just take a pause at the top. We don't have to rush. And if and when you decide to, you could scoop up underneath one knee and gently draw your knee in, and then scoop up underneath the other and draw your other knee in. And then we'll go ahead and find a supported lunge on our other side. So adjusting your props as needed. Using your tri-fold blanket for some support if you liked it on the other side, because all of these props, the whole point of them is for these props to fit your body. So if your props look different than mine, that's totally okay. In fact, it should be, because or it might sometimes be, because your body is different than my body. And that's the whole point, right? So we'll go ahead and set up our props on this side. And then when you're ready to, we could step our left foot forward. Go ahead and adjust as needed. Give yourself some space to fidget, as we will be here for an extended time, as we are in every shape in Yin Yoga. So we want to make sure that the body is as supported and comfortable as possible. And that doesn't mean that we don't feel some of the intensity of the stretch. It just means that the body has a landing space so that the stretch is supported, so that our muscles can relax, can let go, and the connective tissue can receive the opening. And so I welcome you to settle in here for another 8 to 10 rounds of breath. Allowing the props to take your weight as much as possible. And of course, there's still going to be some form of muscle engagement, or else we would completely collapse. But let it be strategic. Let it be minimal. Let it be just enough so that the rest of your body can soften. Taking our last couple rounds of breath here. And only if you feel complete. You might start to walk your hands down off of the bolster and take your time, sending the left foot, the left leg back. And if it feels welcome to take any stretches here, any rebounds, please do so. And then we can adjust for our pigeon. So our left foot can come forward again, and then we'll walk the left foot over to the right and allow the left knee to settle down towards the earth as our trifold blanket catches us supports us. And then you can set up your support, your props, adjust them as needed. And then if you turned your head to the side on the previous pigeon, you might explore turning your head to the opposite side and stretching the opposite side of your neck, if you want to. And so as you settle in, knowing that we'll be here for about 2 minutes, you might notice if the side feels different than the other side. And then returning to softening, returning to heaviness as much as you feel safe to do. If it helps, you could trace the outline of your body with your mind's eye and just notice any area where you could invite some softening, some release. As your muscles grow a little bit heavier, and this support beneath you, the props, hold your weight, knowing that you don't have to hold yourself up. You might even take the remainder of this pose to ask yourself, what do I need in this moment, or maybe just today, to receive or create a little bit more nourishment for my body, my heart, my mind? It might be as simple as having a nourishing lunch or dinner. You might be giving yourself permission to go for a walk after work, or perhaps just sitting outside for a moment, allowing your toes to feel the grass. Sometimes rest comes in small moments. It doesn't always come in big, long stretches of time. So whatever it is today that you can create or prioritize, whatever feels like it's going to feed you, maybe you could bring that thing, that act, to the front of your mind. And as we begin to find completion in this shape, you can choose when you want to leave and take your time slowly coming up and out. And then whenever you get there, I'll meet you again in our straddle. So setting up the props to your liking. as we take the legs to the place where you want them with your bolster or anything else in front of you. And then you could find your way down. And we'll be here for about 10 or so breaths. If you are continuing to enjoy this shape, you could stay here longer if you want. And if you feel ready to move out of it, you can move at your own pace, pressing yourself up. Maybe you take a pause at the top. And just feel whatever is present for you in your body right now. In your own timing, you could scoop up underneath one knee at a time, draw your leg in. And we're going to continue to use our props, but this time, if you have the blanket over your bolster, you could set it to the side. And we're going to continue having the bolster long ways, but the block that's farthest away from you will be at its highest level. Your second block will be at the middle level, and we're going to scooch that back so that it's kind of creating this structure here, and the blocks are touching. So it's nice and supportive. We don't have to worry about the blocks shifting. And then we're just going to lean our bolster right up on that structure so that the very bottom of your bolster is still resting on the floor. And if it's not, that's okay. It's just sometimes there might be a little bit of shifting when you come down onto it. So, taking your other blanket and just having it close by. So I'm just going to leave it to my side. And then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to sit facing away from my bolster. Now, this next shape is a reclined warrior's pose, and it's a very big quad stretch. And there's a couple ways that we can be in this shape. So I'm going to start on the left side, which means that my right leg is just going to be out long. It's going to be hanging out. And I like to move the flesh of my left calf away. And so I'm going to shift to my right. I'm just using my hand to kind of move the flesh of my calf over to the left because I'm going to fold my left foot back behind me. And so it might take a moment for you to find the right placeage positioning for you. And then we'll be leaning back onto our bolster. However, if this is feeling like a big stretch and it's feeling really lopsided, like maybe your left hip is way higher than your right, you can take your blanket. Now you can either leave it in this square, or if you need more of a lift, You can fold it in half. So I always like to say start with less and then add more. And what you'll do is, when you come and lean back onto your bolster, I'm gonna plant my right foot on the floor so that I can just lift up my right hip and scooch that blanket underneath just the right glute, just the right side of my leg, because our left side is already lifted, so we just want a little wedge underneath the right side to create some balance. And the blanket is optional. If you don't want it, you don't feel like you need it, that's okay, you can skip it. But you can adjust, come into this shape in your own way, your own time. And then once you feel nice and settled, you can start to sink. And notice if you're holding on to any tension in the left leg, any muscle tightening. And if so, you might invite those muscles to soften. Settling back. And something I forgot to mention is that your left heel, your left foot is on the outside of your left hip. So if you're sitting on your heel, if you're sitting on your foot, it might not feel super comfortable. So just letting you know to scooch that off to the side if it's not already. And we'll be here for about another minute and a half. We're nearing the end of our practice. This is one of our final poses before Shavasana, our final resting pose. Option to stay here, or if you'd like to take the sole of your right foot and just bring it to the inside of your left leg, option to do so, allowing the right knee to just release and fall open to the side. Last couple breaths here. In your own timing, you might begin to use your hands to press yourself up and away from your bolster, and just be very slow and gentle as you stretch your left leg out. You can move your blanket underneath your hip to the side and allow both knees to come out. And then two options. You could either Just give your legs a little shake, allowing the muscles and the ligaments and connective tissue to just kind of move. Or you can give your legs a gentle little massage, a little squeeze, especially on the left leg. And then we would do the right leg next time. Okay. If you're ready for the next side, you could move your blanket over to the left now. And just remember that each side of the body is really different. And so what you need or don't need on one side could be totally different on the other side. So if you're ready, you could start to draw your right foot back. It might be helpful to move the flesh of your right calf out of the way. And then sinking back when you're ready. If you like the blanket underneath your left hip, you could plant your left foot on the floor. Scooch your blanket underneath just the left side, so just the left glute. And then settle in when you're ready. Then you might notice quite the difference from one side to the next. We'll be here for about 2 minutes. And you may think that you may be doing not much at all, but transformation requires rest. We are in a constant state of transformation, a constant state of constructing, deconstructing, learning, unlearning, growing, changing. That requires rest. Might we allow ourselves to change our thinking from doing nothing is nothing to doing nothing is something. We are resting. We are healing. We are recovering. Option 2, take the sole of your left foot and bring it to the inside of your right leg. Or option to stay where you are. Last few breaths here. And if you're ready, you could press yourself up. Stretch out your legs. Maybe give your right leg a little massage or a shake.
Okay.
Now you have an option of being here for Shavasana, perhaps rolling up your blanket and just allowing it to be right underneath your knees. And then settling back into this reclined shape that you've created here for yourself. Or you might choose to rest in any other shape of your choice. That could be sitting up, lying completely down, resting on your stomach or your side, or even taking the legs up the wall. There is no wrong way to rest. And so whatever calls to you, I invite you to find that now, as we will be here for the next 3 minutes or longer if you choose. And I will be quiet now for the remainder of this time. And I'll let you know when those 3 minutes are complete. Please continue to stay here as long as you like. There is no need to rush away. You can continue to stay here and rest. And if and when you decide you're ready to press yourself up and move away from
this time and start to find completion, you may do so. My hope for you is that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. Thank you for practicing with me today.